base of Parank. We also want to set up Parankan prisons in the United States. There's a lot of young black men in prison for nothing, mainly marijuana offenses. And some gang bangers and whatnot, but the point is they're in prison for a while, they're a captive audience, and many of them can be conscious. So prison, I have a young lady in Oakland who's working with me, a former student, want Paranks in churches, Afrocentric churches, progressive black churches, whatever. Because we have black student unions in the United States, or Pan-African student unions. These are student organizations that are black, that are organized on college campuses. We want them in black studies and Pan-African and black student unions. That requires that we have to have conscious faculty, one or two or three, usually a chair of a department, who will be the anchor, because students graduate, they come and go. And so part of the training for students is how you stabilize a student group. So you have to have a conscious faculty for that to work. And when I retired, I picked my replacement. He's a young brother, his name is Siri McDougal, Dr. Siri McDougal. And I'm real good at picking people. I look at their character. And I saw, because I had people, when I was getting ready to retire, they wanted to replace me. One was an ex-Panther, he was 60 years old. I was tempted. I liked the Panthers. But I said no, because my rule and everything is be open. Don't take a position. Let the situation tell you what to do. And so when all the Vitas came in and everything else, you know, all the people's backgrounds, I looked at his background and come from Chicago. Chicago's real important because you live in black communities in Chicago. It's like a little nation. It's like what a lot of Suriname people do here, you know what I mean? Where people come from the various areas of the Caribbean and they form their community. People from Chicago are like that. And then we interviewed him. I saw he's humble. Oh, he's got scholarly things. And he's like I was at his age. He's real hard, tough. And then he's good looking young man, he's only 26. I said, I don't have to give him the lecture of don't mess with the female students. I can see they'll try and mess with him and they'll be in trouble. And sure enough, it happened. And he's the one sending them to the chair's office. And the chair is telling them, you better go back and apologize to that man. He's your teacher. You're not going to be forming any relationship with him. So that's probably going to be one of the first Paranks we set up on a college campus, because he'll be a good test case. Then I want to get into Black Lives Matter and get some of the folks in that involved in this. So this is a multi-layered, multi-dimensional kind of thing. And Paranks will take on different qualities in different communities. So that's the purpose of this thing today. And what I like about Sister Gloria is her seriousness. And she had read the Art of Leadership years ago and then called me and said she wanted me to come. And I can hear her seriousness, and she's very persistent. And then I could see her approach in terms of organizing. And I thought, well, yeah, this would be an ideal thing. And so I think this is the start. You always start with a core group. And with something like this, you really don't want a lot of people when it comes to this kind of training. In a speech, it's good, as many as you have. But in something like this, a workshop, it's smaller, it's better. So hopefully some people here will have an interest in participating in this on a long-term basis. So there's two parts this afternoon. There's really three, but there's two major parts. One is on consciousness, and we're going to start with that. And this is going to be dealing with what I call the reconstruction of the black mind. We call it here freedom of the mind, but it's reconstruction of the black mind. And so this is a process that liberation movements in the 60s went through, and in other periods of time. And so we've been able to identify stages people go through when they're undergoing an awakening. And I suspect that many people here are on a different path in terms of their consciousness. And so this is going to be discussing where you're at and then giving you an idea of where it goes from there. Some of you may be at the highest level, so then I'll sit down and you can come up here and do the training. Right? You may have reached the very peak, and if you have, then I will shut up and you will come here and do it this, because I'm not claiming I've reached the highest peak. I'm still working on this, you know what I mean? So the key thing about this is this comes through practice, 56 years of it, and observing people, and then taking people through a process. Now today, we're just identifying how it works. In the groups that I work in, it's an 8 to 9 month process. We take people through this. The Panthers didn't have this, and if they had it, they would have survived the FBI. You know? Malcolm had it, but the nation resisted it. But Malcolm had his own method. Elijah did not go through the training Malcolm went through, but Malcolm was trained by Elijah, but Malcolm went through his own system. And it pretty much mirrors the same thing. Our psychologists in the United States, black psychologists, they have not identified what this is. Because unless you've gone through the liberation struggle and undergone transformation, you'll have a piece of it. You'll have some consciousness, because we have some conscious scholars. If you haven't gone through this, you won't have the picture of it. Because it's something, you can't talk about it unless you walk it. And I'm not claiming we know the whole thing either, because things are changing and things are very messy now. In the States, very messy. So there's a lot of adaptation and adjustment we have to do to this, especially with the youth, because very terrible things have happened in the States that have impacted families. So that's the first part. The first part will be dealing with the transformation or the reconstruction of the mind, or what Amilcar Cabral called mental conversion. This was his term. And Malcolm had his own way of describing it. He didn't have a label, but he had a way of describing it. And when we go through this, we'll hear what it was, which pretty well marked the changes he went through. And I'd say this process pretty much applies to people of color, because people of color face a similar experience. Whites always ask me, how does this apply to them? I said, that's your problem. You have to figure that one out. Because not being white, I have not had that experience. And I said, it's interesting that whites haven't been interested in this since their minds have messed up everything else. And if you want to have a transformation, it would seem to me, you've got to get your humanity back. So that's something you need to figure out. I said, I have figured out one thing though. This is the United States. That if whites are going to begin the process of reconstructing their minds, they have to abandon whiteness. See, in the United States, whiteness means free, white, and 21. It means I'm not black. It means I'm better than you. And it's a myth, because whites have been assimilated under Anglo-Saxon Protestantism in the States. Here, this is Dutch land. But in the States, it's every conglomeration of white mixed all up. A few Dutch, some French, German, Italian, you name it. But to get over in the United States, you speak English. It's an Anglo-Saxon Protestant value, so you're assimilated into that. But you're really assimilated into whiteness. So I haven't figured out what white people need to do to get their transformation of consciousness. And it's interesting, they haven't thought that they need to, and that means revolutionary. So they got a problem. So that's the first part. The second part, we'll be looking at part1. The first part is looking at identity. It's looking at how identity is transformed and developed so you know yourself, the levels of this. The second part is dealing with destiny. That's your purpose in life. and everyone here is pursuing something. And so Paran is the highest educational system in ancient Kemet. But I'm going to be honest with you, if we were to discuss how Kemet did it, it would be very esoteric because nobody knows how. Kemet is dead when it comes to the continuing practice of Kemetic civilizations. We know things about Medu Neter, we know some concepts, but we do not know how they carried people through what they called the mystery system, which was their higher system. So while we use the term Paran, and we'll go through what that means, what we'll be doing is using the Dogon, and we'll be using the African American systems that were adapted from the secret societies of Africa, brought in to the Caribbean, South America, and the US. And then how we took these African systems and adapted them to our reality. I went through this system. I was going through a Dogon system, but it was an African American system that was the operational system that carried me through it. And in the Caribbean and in South America, you have systems. These are called apprenticeship. It's not just a trade, learn how to build a house, but it affects every area of life. These were the systems carried out of Africa. And in the United States, if you see a black person who's really good at something, who's a master, they have come through this system. John Henry Clark came through this system. Malcolm X came through this system. We'll talk about a woman, you'll see who she is, Ella Baker, one of the two best organizers in the 60s, equal to Malcolm. She came through this system. I'm writing a book on this now. It'll explain how Paran works, but it's bigger than Paran. This is our culture, and it's something we've taken for granted because we often think that someone with a degree, with a title, a PhD or a master's, this somehow is what makes them knowledgeable. But you'll usually find our people who are really good with these degrees, they've gone back and been re-educated. And they've been re-educated through this system. So the second part of this, we'll be going through how the Dogon and the African American system works. And it's going to look at some stuff about secret societies because they were so secret. The historians say virtually nothing about them because the Africans, believe it or not, we keep secrets. You all know that?
Yeah.
I know you know that. We're real good with secrets, you know what I mean? And so I'm very fortunate that I was not initiated in one of these secret societies because then I could not tell anything. But so mine went through a system, but I wasn't pledged to secrecy because if I was, then my mouth would be shut, you know what I mean? And it was a good thing because it carried us through enslavement. So these are the two parts. So when we finish the first part, we'll take a break, probably get something to eat, we'll come back for the second part. And then the finishing part is anything that people are interested in. Gloria had some interest in some things about organizing, some basic organizing. So we can share some things on that. So that's what this is about. So what I wanted to start with is just a little discussion here in terms of people giving a little about their background, you know, in terms of your pursuit of your own identity, your own interest in African culture, or in the culture of the countries you come from, or Africans, Suriname, whatever. Just your path, your pursuit. What is it that's led you to this point? And who's been some of the people who've influenced you, or events or experiences? So I wanted to start with that, and then we'll get into these cycles of transformation. So who would like to start? I know you came expecting me to speak all day. It's not going to happen. So who wants to start? start right here.
Do I have to say it or can I say
Yeah, you can say who you are, and if you're interested in anything about your history and culture.
Yes. Sharon, I'm 30 years old.
How do you spell your name?
SHARWIN. Yes. Yeah. Interested in the African culture. I'm studying here in Holland and I'm doing higher education. And my last year, and most of the time I was the only or two of the blacks in the classroom, and I was sitting there and I was like, this doesn't feel good. I have to go search for my own history, and just when I started looking on YouTube, searching for clips. And I started with a friend of mine sent me a clip of Dr. Umar Johnson.
Who?
Dr. Umar Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And there is where I started to get more information of the African culture. And about a book from a Dutch author who wrote about African history.
What's the name of the book?
I always forget it. From Jehudu. Yeah.
Which part of African history?
How do you say that in English? It does different kinds of history. But not the whole. You see, there's a piece of history and tells it. Yeah.
For example,
he's talking about Kenya, and he's talking about Suriname, in the United States, and all about yeah. So
are there any other experiences you've had that got you interested in your own history and culture?
Most of that, I was sitting in school and I wasn't feeling right. I was sitting between all white people and I was like, is this going to be my destiny? And I want to be with my own people. Yeah.
This university that you're talking about now?
Yeah.
What's your major? You said art?
Social works.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you want to help people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I respect social work. You know, a lot of people it's business, which is good. We need business. But the people with heart, they care. You don't make a lot of money doing social work, but you help people, get a chance to help them. I'm also interested in what got you interested in your history and culture, and if there's any experiences you've had in your life that have served to cause you to open your eyes, or caused you to see things differently. The experiences, it could be with this, how this Dutch system works, it could be whatever. I don't want to.
For me, it started with Blackfeet. Yeah.
Okay, now we get it. And how did Blackfeet affect you?
Oh, I was 6 years old and I went to school and all Santa Claus came with the Blackfeet and the way he was acting very silly. I wasn't people telling me you look like that Blackfeet, and I'm not Blackfeet. But when I came home, my mother told me straight that Blackfeet is a white guy that's smooth, but it didn't feel good. Yeah.
And so how did you feel when you saw black people.
Mm-hmm.
And was it in a white class? A lot of white students?
It wasn't a white class, but I was the only black kid. It was with Turkish, Moroccan.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd you feel?
Strange. Yeah. Yeah.
So did that lead to anything after that?
Not till I was 19. Then I started to really go into it. Yeah.
Did your mother tell you anything else about black people?
No, she only told me that it's a white guy and we as family, we don't celebrate it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So hopefully we have more people.
Yeah. See, this is important because part of what I'm trying to get at is your interest in your history and culture and any experiences you've had that have drove you in that direction. Because usually most of us living in the West, even though some of you may have been born in Suriname, born in Africa, or wherever you were born, when we come into the West, we get exposed to a lot of stuff that's very insulting for black people. Very hard, very degrading. And the question is, and other people, Arab people, different people who come into this country. So the question is, how did that affect you? Because usually that's a part of people's story. That's a part of what's leading people to their consciousness, usually. Not everybody can say that, because sometimes it's just a whole bunch of experience. You may not be able to say there was one thing, but if there is, what is it? Anybody else? Because everybody's going to get a chance to talk, so you should volunteer. Yes.
Yes, I'm Marlene. I'm a nutritionist.
You're what?
Nutritionist.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
and I also went to the university. I studied law, Dutch law, and I have interest in African history because it hurts me that though we have a lot of development going on in all parts of the world, black people are still behind. And I want to do something about it. That's why I'm here too, because you have to keep on learning and you have to work hard if you want to be somewhere. So I want to make black people aware of that they have to work hard to have something like emancipation, because you cannot blame someone else, white man or Chinese, that they have it and you don't have it. You have to work for it. And I want to make people aware of that you don't get things for nothing. You have to work for it.
Have you had any experiences in your life with racism or anything that has affected you or encouraged you to get interested in history and culture? Anything?
No, I don't. I've never seen it that way. That it's their fault. Maybe in history when we had slavery, but nowadays we all have equal rights. You can go to school and study and have a better position. So it was wrong in the past with slavery, but now we have the chance to change it. And if you want to change it, then you have to work for it. And it hurts me when people say, it's my situation is like this because of the slavery, of slavery. But I haven't had any experience, bad experience, personally. But I can't see how people are blaming others, or it's always slavery that is the cause of black people staying behind, and I'm not agree with that.
Okay.
Because it was like that because in the past it was not right. See, but nowadays we have equal rights. Like people from Turkey, Morocco, they come here and they have their own business. They go to school. They go to the university. But black people, they don't do it.
They do
Just-
what?
Just like what he said.
Black people what?
Most of them, they don't go to the university just like him, or he was the only one in his classroom. So I want to see more of them in the classroom.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I'm also some kind of an education system, but that's not true because 40 to 50% of all the higher education students at universities and hogescholen are from different cultures.
Mhm.
So it's like all the classrooms are putting out of mixed students and all kind of
Yes.
so
But
you cannot say I'm unique now in the situation that you are the
No.
only black person.
But he was. So you have different cultures, but I'm talking about African people. You see, because a lot of them, especially the ladies, they get pregnant and they don't go to school anymore. And I don't say there are not people of different culture, but you have less black people from Africa. It's true. Just like he's young and he has this experience, so we have to be honest with ourselves.
Okay, so you're raising a question, and it's part of what's going to come up in this discussion, and it's going to be, does slavery still have an impact today on African people? That's going to be a question, you know what I mean? And does it affect how we see ourselves and how we see the world? And I think if you were talking to other people of color, it'd be a question of, did colonialism have an effect on that? And with many people here who come from South America, Africa, it can be a mixed bag. If it's Suriname, it's slavery. What was its effect? It's colonialism. What was its effect? And then the reality you've got right now, you know what I mean? Which is a whole nother mess. And what's that effect? And so that's a part of what we've got to look at. And so the question is it true that now we're free and we just have to take advantage of these opportunities, or is there something else going on here? And this is a part of these stages of consciousness, you know what I mean? What they arise from, what's the conditions. Someone else, what do you think? And what's your experience? Your name?
My name is Gloria Gomes. I was brought up in Curacao in a apartheid mountain, and I came to Holland to study. I was in nursing, but I didn't like it, and I came out and I went. I'm a social worker. At the moment, I'm not working. But I'm just listening to the sister, and I think it's not true that we can go to school and study it, because a lot of blacks, when they go to school, they just walk against them. They have so many problems, my God. And this thing with color this and color that. I was so sick because I'm a twin. My brother died. I'm the black one, and the one like you, he died. And you just around me just hear clear skin in Curacao. They have this thing, foolishness of clear skin and clear skin and clear skin. I have friends from Curacao that I go around with, and I just was, everything is clear skin and clear skin and clear skin.
And clear skin means light skin.
Light skin and clear
Right.
skin and light skin.
And
they
you caught
don't want
hell,
no.
and you caught hell because you were darker than your brother.
With my brother. And they don't want to, they just want a white man. They don't want no black man. They want a white man, because a white man bring you further. And a white black man don't do this, you don't do that, and whatever. But you just want to hang around black people when it come to knowledge and different things. They want to go around with black people, and I don't want to be a part of the what do you call it? not that, but
Nederlands?
nee,
Dan vertalen we het voor je.
Manipulation. I don't want to be a part of the manipulation. When I went to go to knowledge like this, they want to be a part of it, but I don't want nothing to do with no black man, so I just keep away from those people. I just get sick of those black people. I just try to do my best, always to keep knowledge. So many times have knowledge, different people come from America, from England, or whatever. I go to these teachings to learn more about it, and then those blacks that interested, I speak about to them about what I've learned. Those blacks. Different to that, I was he was talking about this secret society. Years back, when I came to Holland, through a friend, I was in Rosicrucian. But I came across Rosicrucian because I had a feeling, my feeling that they was talking about different things about different things in the Rosicrucian, but I had a feeling it was a black history, but it was not about the blacks, it was about the Arabs. And it was not true. So then you know what happened? Then when every year I go to Carnival, years back I used to go to Carnival in England. So then I went to Carnival in England, and when I walk in the street of England, I just walk in the street of England and I pray. I said, God, open my way, open my way. I said, 1, 2, 3, God, open my way. Because this black thing, this Arab thing, I know it's a lie. Please open my way and let me see it. So then when I walk in the street of England, a brother, one of the black brothers came and gave me a leaflet about black history. You didn't know about it because they used to come here to Holland and they used to give us teachings about the history and black history. So I learned a lot about my own history. So I know a lot about my own history. So I know everything that they're talking about the Arab is not true, but the Rosicrucian, because the headquarters is in America and California, and they still with this thing on Arab thing. And lots of people think that everything from these societies is about other people. It is our own history. It's our culture. Yeah, it's our own culture.
Now there's some important things she's raising, and we get into these cycles of African consciousness. One of the things she's raising is the color issue among black folks. And in the States, it's called color struck. It's like lightning hits you. And there's black people who think you're blessed if you got hit and you're light.
Yeah, and you have straight hair.
Yeah. And so the question is, and then there are blacks, because in the States, you know, people from the Caribbean, the color thing is clear. You know,
strong.
You'll come clear, and there'll be clear privilege for a light-skinned person. You know what I mean? But in America, it's more complex because it's different systems. So there's the blue vein stuff, and the stuff about white and light, bright, and all this stuff. And then there's blacks who are very dark complexion who look down on light complexion black people.
Oh yeah.
And it's got to do with the history of slavery. And there's conscious blacks who are very light, and unconscious blacks who are very dark, and there are unconscious blacks who are very light, and very conscious blacks who are very dark. So you cannot, in the States, just measure it by someone's color and say, oh yeah, this is the way it is. But the question is, where does this color thing come from? And so when we get into discussion, and I think a lot of you know where it comes from, that's the question, because if it comes from somewhere in our past, and it certainly didn't come from Africa, then if it's still going on, it means that past is still being lived out. You know what I mean? And it's being lived out in different kinds of ways. And so what's that about? And so if you're talking about a reconstruction of the black mind, if you ignore that one, you're in trouble. Big fat trouble. You know what I'm talking about? I know people here know what I'm talking about. So that's a very important point. And then the Rosicrucian issue, that's another issue that's interesting. So when we get into history of secret societies, it's going to be interesting to look at how black people have used that. Someone else. Yeah.
My name is Anthony,
Spell that.
A-N-T-H-O-N-Y.
Anthony.
And I'm a business economist.
Talk louder.
I'm a business economist.
Okay.
And when I was young, I asked my mother why everything was white. Like, yeah, the white t-shirts and all the good things that white did was being spread in the media.
Talk louder.
All the good things that were done by white people were being spread in the media, and like all the things that would happen with like Africa was still poor, and all those questions I had she couldn't answer. And then my good friend here, Shano, I started to talk with him, and then he had sent me like information that he had sent me like go watch like John Andrew Clark, Ivan Concertina, and then he also sent me the Hidden Color series.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that that opened my eyes basically, and answered a lot of questions. that I
And
had.
about how old were you when you started doing this kind of reading?
It was like 3-4 years ago, so I was like 30 years.
How long ago?
It was like when I started to learn this information, it was like 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
So it was like 30 years. Yeah.
30 years before you got this information.
Yeah. Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's important, that when people start to get their eyes open, one of the things that's most disappointing is you'll feel,
Like
why did it take so long for me to get this? We all feel like that.
Yeah,
But guess what? Whenever you got it, it's a good time.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a good time, because that's the time you were meant to get it, and awakening is what it is, whatever your age is, you know?
That's true, and that's why, because I had learned at such an old age, I think my focus is just to learn it my children at a younger age, so that they will grow up with that conscious mind, and just have friends like Maxim as well. When we just debate and talk about the things we're learning, and what I have seen in my career is like coming to the thing that the lady was saying, that now you have the opportunity. Yeah, the opportunity is there, but still, if you want to go there, most of the time you need to confirm. Like I've studied at the university, but if I wanted to work at a bank or at a big accountancy firm, I need to get rid of my dreads, take out my earrings, my gold teeth, and I didn't want it. So at a young age, I was against that system, so I chose another path just to have a career, basically.
So you set up your own business?
Now I have started, but I didn't choose to go to a big accountancy firm. I just went to choose another path, like being like a finance manager in a design agency. Is more like how can you say? Yeah, more like casual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also
Like a consultant or something?
no, I was a finance manager there, but it was a design agency, so it's more like casual work environment. They don't judge you at how you look at the work you're doing. And also what I'm very interested in is the black economy. basically, and if you just look at the economic system, they are still based on slavery. So actually, it's not gone. I mean, if you look at, it's always based on getting cheap labor and then selling it at a higher price. It still consists of basically it never went away. And
Ripping you off.
yeah, it's ripping you off, and that's why as a child I was always thinking, why is Africa poor, and through the studies and the things you learn, when you see like this systematic thing that is still being continued.
So when you were a child and you were asking your mother,
Yeah.
why is everything black pictured as negative and everything white is pictured as positive? How were you reacting then? And what did your mother have to say about that?
Actually, she didn't know, basically.
And what was your reaction? It's obvious you're asking questions.
Yeah, because it didn't feel right. Basically, I mean, we have a gut feeling that it is not right, but you cannot pinpoint it because you don't have the knowledge yet. And now that I do, now I am teaching her, like, hey, I'm teaching you this, you need to look at this. Here's the reason why they say like Jesus is white. This is the reason why they say why they keep Africa poor. So now I'm learning the things. So now I'm learning her the things, and also my siblings the things that I'm learning, spreading up there.
So, you know, when you're saying the negative is being portrayed as black, the positive is white, did it lead you to do anything at that point? Was there any behavior that, you know, you engaged in as a result of that? Or was there any reaction you had to that?
My
other than
reaction was just spread my knowledge, basically.
But that's prior to you reading John Henry Clark and stuff. So at that point, what kind of knowledge were you spreading?
No, I didn't have any knowledge.
Yeah, so how did you react at that point? That's my question. You were concerned about that, but did it lead you to do anything?
No, we were just only, I was only discussing it like this. Right.
Yeah.
It can't be right,
But you didn't get the answers.
no, it was from my friend Sean, who gave me like the handout, like, hey, just go watch this, and it was like mind blowing for me.
Is he here? Your
Yeah,
friend?
he's here.
Oh, right. Okay.
So,
He's playing a particular role. And you see, when we go through these stages of consciousness, what you're going to see is there are people who play certain roles. I'll tell you how it worked with me.
yeah.
And you're describing
Actually,
the
this is my
process.
longtime friend, so.
Yeah.
So.
Real good friend. Who's older?
He's older.
It doesn't matter. Because whoever's got the consciousness, got the source of knowledge, that's the one that's doing the eye-opening.
Yeah. So he opened my eyes,
Yeah.
basically, and then eventually we just go to learn that other friends like Maxim also knows a lot. And so then, yeah.
And see, there's a key point here, because when we go through these stages of consciousness, in order for someone to affect you, they got to be on your level. They got to be somebody that you can understand.
Yeah.
So they got to be talking to you in a way that you get it. When I go through my experience, I'll show you that my father was telling me this all the time, but I didn't get it because his consciousness was over my head.
Yeah.
So when I finally had my experience, it was someone who was hitting me at my level. He didn't know he was, but I knew. That's all that matters. This is real important, you know what I mean? So you're describing a stage, and we'll go into that in a minute. Someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your name?
Jose
Yeah, right.
in North America. And I'm Cambodian. My family name is also it's actually a slave name that I can use to hit the white man. It's bronze, so I'm black and I'm bronze. But I believe I must have been guided by ancestors. I'm the youngest from two brothers, and what I finally I realized what was going on in in our family. My mother is a narcissist. My father is her Stockholm syndrome.
Your
And,
mother is what?
Stockholm syndrome. With every narcissist, there comes a Stockholm
She's
syndrome.
a narcissist.
Yeah, yes. We practically were left to our demise, because growing up in this country is a demise for black people. It started, my parents were politically active, like whatever, bring democracy to the Cape Verde Islands. But the support that we got was from parties that were not in our interest. So I grew up looking at my parents and all the contradictions in religion, in well, this skin color thing, because the father of my mother is the colonizer, the Portuguese colonizer, and well, every firstborn in our valley, every firstborn looks like my mother. To give you an impression, colonization is nothing different than slavery. So I grew up, and with every phase, I had a new explanation of the behavior of my parents / my mother. There was a period that I thought she was a strong black mother, because she always well, she tried entrepreneurships. She tried a couple of creative things, but all the time, me and my brother we're kind of left alone, left to our demise. So at school I had this history professor, and he's now in the townhouse, making it difficult for immigrants in this city. But there was a big contradiction, because this guy, even my black friends, my black classmates said he's a racist, but he opened my eyes in concern of what my parents were doing to our home country. They were actually bringing this white thinking that you mentioned yesterday, bringing it. They were working hard to bring that thinking to the Cape Verde Islands, and I was more with the ideology of the opposing party, which Cabral initiated. So I felt Cabral, and I didn't feel my parents. At school, I was jeopardized. After school, I didn't want to know about school, because in the street, me and my brother get a lot of credit, like, hey, you guys are smart, intelligence, and whatever. And at school, not only the system itself, but also classmates. When you have an opinion of your own, you have it bad with your own people if you're African. I don't know how to formulate it, but we keep each other in line. When you're good at school, you're acting white, those kind of things. So I listened to a lot of white music, and I had a lot of problems with my friends in my youth, because I listened to rock, for example. Here's a rap rock band that I used to scratch in. So all these contradictions, like the consciousness that this situation at home gave me, made me conscious about us, actually.
About what?
About us, how we behave. At this point in time, I believe that we don't have an I, we don't have a self, else we would not be reactionary. It's a fact that we are jeopardized here. No need to deny that. I'm not surprised from which corner it comes today. But yeah, so after school, I did a lot of dumb work. I was the extension of machines in factories. In my free time, I did sophisticated things. I produced music for rappers, and after 10 years, I started to ask myself, why don't everybody thinks computers are difficult, but I have never had difficulties with computers. So I became an ICT. I went back into ICT. Let me put it that way, and I made a blitz career, so, as they call it here. Very quickly, it was like falling up. It was very easy, and I was successful. At a certain point, I got so much responsibility that I had to do an assessment test.
Yeah,
With that
right.
assessment test, there was an IQ test, and I scored very high, abnormally high, and I realized my life was stolen actually by my parents that had low expectations or no expectations or even worse, the narcissist situation. I realized even my friends didn't grant me. You know, if you, again, when you have your opinion of yourself, you think and act independent, your people gonna pull you back. They get nervous. Well, yeah, to make a long story short, growing up with us Africans growing up outside of our domain is one big schizophrenic happening.
Okay.
And therefore, the only solution that I think, there's only one solution, and that's Sankofa, return. Either physically, and me myself, I believe in physical return, but at least mentally.
Okay.
Back to our African freestyle of life.
Yeah.
Organized, or what is freestyle structure, jazz.
I hear you. My generation is improvisation, hip hop is freestyle, same thing.
Exactly, that's our lifestyle,
In
and
fact,
we should
hip-hoppers
return to that.
Have improved by describing what improvisation is. 'Cause
Exactly.
It's freedom. It's the expression of freedom.
I had to improvise my life.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all have. Interesting, Cape Verde, it's like Martinique in the Caribbean. A lot of Martinicans think they're French.
Yeah.
Cape
Yes.
Verde, the Portuguese left their seed everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When we get to Cabral, you'll see that Cabral decided to be an African because he thought he was Portuguese. Ain't that funny? It's not.
what I want to add, a lot of Cape Verdeans stem from Papel. That's a tribe. I hate the word tribe, but whatever. Papel is a community that mainly lives in Guinea-Bissau. We used to be one country with Guinea-Bissau, and Papel are light skinned actually, just like the sun in southern Africa. So yes, the Portuguese did what they did, but most probably we are not that mixed as that we believe. In our mind, we are more Portuguese than in our blood.
Oh, very interesting. That's why we have this discussion, because you see, the reality is complex, but the results are pretty similar. You know what I mean? We all come from these different realities. We're gonna have a few more people, and then we're gonna get into this. Who else would like to volunteer?
One question.
Yeah.
Kunnen jullie allemaal wat luider spreken?
Say what?
Nou, er is
To speak what louder.
een microfoon beschikbaar.
Yeah, bring the mic up here, right here first. Then we'll get to you. Yeah.
My name is Aisha. I'm here because I'm kind of feeling lost. I have some experience in my life, and because it was a bad experience, not only bad because I have a good life that I'm really thankful, but because of those bad experience, I'm kind of feeling lost, and I think in order to find myself, I need to know about my roots and I need to learn about my history. So, first things. And what comes after that, yeah, may come, but I think I need to start with my history first.
Mm.
So that's why.
What's some of the bad experiences you've had?
Just in life, in love, and because you live like you're supposed to, like you go to school, you get your diploma, and then you get a career, and then what? You do all those things like you're supposed to do, but things turn out to go bad anyway. So what am I doing wrong, or what am I supposed to do to get things right? How do I learn of those bad experiences? How do I make the best of it for my future? And I don't know how to do that, so I'm just here for a little bit of help.
What kind of school have you gone through?
Now I work now in a laboratory. I do research in law and urine cases.
Mike?
Kind of
She's saying that she does research on blood in a laboratory.
Yeah.
So your work in college was science?
Yes.
What area of science?
Yes.
What area?
Clinical.
Clinical. And so when you got out of college, you had done all this good work. I guess you were a good student. Sounds like you're a good student. And so you had disappointments. What were some of the disappointments that hit you?
At the work too, because with work I just like there come a lot of white folks, and I like for everything, but especially white folks. And at my work they expect me to treat everybody like the same. But while I'm doing my work and I treat everybody the same, there are people coming to me that don't treat me like one of them. So that really bothers me. Why do I have to treat everybody the same, but I'm not treating like everybody? So that's one of an example.
It's typical white.
And in love too, like this generation, I really feel just one black sheep in this generation, because like what a relationship used to be like, it's not anymore. Like everything is like through social media, but for example, it's not like you go outside and you really get to know each other. Everything is through WhatsApp and Facebook, and I don't feel it. It's not real.
Fake. It's in the like fake.
It's fake.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not, you don't feel it. You don't feel love. You don't feel the.
Anti-social media.
Yeah.
But black people don't have to look for love on a computer.
On the computer.
That was the rap yesterday, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you wasn't here yesterday, you missed out.
yeah, and you're gonna get some dating situation based on what you have in common. Some machine's gonna tell you what you have in
This
common.
person is the one for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Uh,
Because we don't connect,
yeah, there's no feeling.
There's no feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I add something? Or do you want to?
No, let her finish. You got
Yes,
anything else?
I mean, that's okay.
How long you been out of school?
For now, 1 year.
Where'd you go to school?
Here in Rotterdam.
Did you have any other experiences before that bothered you?
Yes, on the streets, like you try to treat everybody the same, but one time I was walking to school. It was 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had some air on the music, so I didn't hear a man on the bike coming. And then he was always almost at me, like he cursed me and he called me such bad names, like, yeah, black monkey, and I'm gonna kill you, you know. And I was like, really? Why? Like, I don't understand how you can be so mad at 8 o'clock in the morning, first of all. But, you know, these are the kind of people I live with in this world. And I had some experience too on Facebook last week, and it was about Savannah Simons, about black people, and like they are gonna send her away. And I was going through the page on Facebook, and there was a lot of ratings going on. And first of all, I was thinking on how could this page still exist, like for more than one day, that it still exists is that people are accepting it. So, and then like for my family, I'm going to them and I'm saying, yes, we cannot accept this, we have to say something, and they're like, no, just let it go, just let it go. But I'm like, if we just let it go, they can do whatever they want to, and they can say whatever they want to, and I'm like, no, because you have to respect one another. Like, we cannot accept, like, they are calling us monkeys, and, you know, I want to treat everybody the same, but I want to get treated the same too, first of all.
And the same too, I translate that to mean a lot more. The same too, be treated right.
Right, yeah, in the right
Treated
way.
like a human being.
Yeah, like a human being, because first of all, we are humans. We're all here together, stuck on this planet as a human being. So I don't think we need to see each other as black and white. But if you see me as black, okay, I'm gonna be black first of all, because you see me that way. So, I mean, it's kind
Well,
of struggle.
that's another question of who defines us? Do we define ourselves based on reaction, or we define ourselves based on our reality? You know? And so, as we go through this, the reason I'm having this discussion first is I want to understand your situation, and then two, I want you to look at this and apply this to yourself. You know what I mean? And so put yourself in it. And so I think it's very good people are being honest. Be honest, because a lot of people sometimes don't want to discuss the pain, or if they have gone through a certain experience where they weren't really conscious, weren't really aware, that sometimes they don't want to discuss that. Well, that is very important, because that's where your consciousness comes from. So, you know, the whole point in your point about wanting to be treated the same, you're trying to treat other people with respect, and you're not getting it. So there's more to it than that. And so that's the point. But I think that's very important. We're going to do it with the brother, then we're going to get into these cycles. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Sam Heru. That's 1, 2, we're on? Yes. I'm Heru Sam Breenveld. We got a study group in this house called the Royal House of Ra. We're working with the Raunefer Amen cultivation system. Yesterday I was here also, and today we brought our people also to listen, and because some of the things you said, I agree with that. You have to apply it, and you have to be doing something to apply the Kemetic, knowledge into your life. So I thought it would be a good thing for our group also to be here and listen to this, and see what we can learn from you. Yes?
Good.
Thank you. Yeah?
Yeah, Sarasek.
Sarasek Society, yes. Raunefer Amen. Yeah. So we're not a party of theirs, because what happened is that when we start reading and researching what he is saying, we found that in the Suriname culture, we have the same thing in a different way, And so this helped us to connect the, to find like the trace, to know that the tree of life, what they made the Kabbalah of later, is actually an African thing that went with us throughout, in the diaspora and so on. So we saw that this was the missing link to reconnect to the source. So this is what we're doing here. So okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know Rod Neffer. We appeared on some programs together.
Okay.
We have some similarities in background. And my wife, she has family members who are members of Ron Neffer in Los Angeles. So
In Brooklyn too.
yeah, in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know them. I know everybody in that.
Yeah.
Does someone have to say something else?
Yeah, I'm going to start wrapping this up because I want to get into discussion, but if you want to share something.
Yeah, I definitely want to share something.
Your name again?
Yeah, my name is Donny Puketi, aka Don Martina. I've been doing different creative things like drawing, rapping, reading books and different kind of stuff. But I want to make a combination of my life, why I'm in Holland, what my situation was, and why I like, for instance, spread the knowledge that I know, but in a different way. Everybody has his test in this world or in this community. When I was born in Suriname. I came from background from the people from the outback, the Maroons, what they were called. In 1989, I came to Holland because political reason. My father went out of Suriname. He was 2 years before in Holland, and he missed us, and he brought us in Holland. And when in the time that I grew up, I know I was very conscious about me born in Suriname, knowing for a part where I'm from. And I always thought in that time that like we're gonna live for a short period of time in Europe, in Holland, and then we go back. Because you only live here, that's what I thought. Just for work, just to be happy, and when everything is fine, you go back. But in the 5 years the first 5 years that I lived in Holland, I saw the family structure, the household broke up in 5 years. My dad has problem with my mother, my brother has problem with my dad. I try to be good with all three of them, but very slowly it's ripped apart. But you as a child, it's some children, on any children, it has its effect differently. Some hard, some soft, some active, some inactive, a different way. But I could handle it for a period of time. And you are very influenced by everything that is white. But you are a black person, and you look, personally, from my point of view, I was looking up to things that was black. But I was open for everything that I like. Just like my brother over here, I was listening to rock music in the beginning of my period that I'm in Holland. Since in Suriname, I was listening actually already to rock music, but it became more when I came to Holland. I was listening to all kind of music, youth music, everything. I came after 1996, 97, I came in a depression, and it took a very long time to get out of it. And by influence of like Tupac Shakur, I started reading books. And one of the books that gave me a lot of answers to my whole situation was a book written by Frantz Fanon, White Skin, Black Skin, White Mask, White Skin, Black Mask.
Black skin, white mask, that's right.
Black Skin, White Mask. And he was like from many books that I've read, he explained a situation where I really felt related to, because he was explaining the difference between African people that live in Europe and the difference between people from the Caribbean that live in Europe, the differences between them and how they live and how they've been treated and how they, from the French point of view, I was comparing it with the Dutch point of view and a British point of view because it's all the same. It's all come in one point, on one point. What I actually wanted to say is like Frans Fanon, all his books, I only read 2 books of him, the rest of the Earth and Black Skin Whiteness. The other 2 books I have to read yet, but it hits you so hard, and he explained everything precisely what happened with the black people in Europe, whether he's from Africa, whether he's from the Caribbean, and he tell more than that. And sometimes you think like, what can you do about it? Because for yourself, you find a solution like, okay, I know where this and this coming from, I know where this and this come from. How can I help my people to get out of this stuff? Because every person has his own experience, but in every household or family or hood or group or diaspora, there is a similarity or some things that are equal, that are in common. So the best way for me personally to spread my knowledge is not like by rapping. For me, it couldn't work totally by rapping because you are attached on specific things that I didn't want to be attached on. So I came up with the idea to pick up books that Chuck D read, and I spread all the advice literature. And I started off in a high school, university school in Rotterdam, Erasmus University. And since I spread those papers, they received it very good. So from that point on, I started to spread more of them, and it didn't become bigger, but I found out that there were not much female writers or persons that things that had to do with black females and all the females in general. So I look on internet and look for other sources to make a collection of different books that has to do with black females and to spread more of the books so that when the women read books, the men gonna follow automatically because most of the time, even we have to listen to each other. Most of the time, the man has to listen to his girlfriend or his wife or his female or his sister or his mother. So I try to spread more of the knowledge to the female so it can come close more to a household, because the best way to receive your knowledge is by reading books, in my point of view. Because otherwise Malcolm X wouldn't become great, Shakespeare wouldn't become great, Kwame Nkrumah, all of them people, they read books, and because of reading books you follow people you didn't know at the first time, they were far away, and they might be your best friend because they tell you stuff your parents couldn't even tell. The media, TV, television, internet couldn't even tell you, dare to tell you. And last but not least, the schools don't even try to dare have the information to give you the stuff you really, really need. So
Now, let me ask you a question.
yeah,
So how old were you when you came here from Suriname?
I was 8 years old.
And what, you saw the breakup of the family and everything
Yeah,
coming through here.
yeah.
What effect has Suriname culture had on you in terms of your awareness?
That was in like when you the rules in Holland, like if you live like for 5 years in Holland, then you will get a passport because you're immigrant, like you're not from Holland, you know. So when I got the passport, me and my brother and my mother, we after 5 years, 1989 to 95, we went back to Suriname, and I was very happy me going back to Suriname, and for me it was an eye opener. Like, okay, all for me personally, it was the best 5 years of my life between 1989 and 95. 1989 and 96, because I developed myself to become me, for myself, a better person on anything and every creative thing that I try to do. So when I went to Suriname and I came back, everything went down, everything went downwards. Like my father, he wanted me to live in his house. I didn't want to. There were too many things that affected me that I didn't expect. I lost, not losing literally, but two of my best friends, they immigrated to Curaçao, to the Dutch Caribbean. And I never knew that that would affect my life that hard, because my life was based upon their life, because they were my best friends. I made something creative out of, from their life for me, and I made something creative out of it. Since they went out, I had no one close to make something creative of. So after that, I wasn't that creative anymore. So I started listening to rap music. It didn't have bad effect on me, only good effect, because I knew what to listen to or what not. And after 95, after coming from Suriname, I tried to focus more on things that are black. So the only influence that I had from outside my environment was TV. So the closest thing that was black for me was rap music. So Nas, Tupac, Biggie, they were new for me. But before that, I was listening only to hard rock, heavy metal, Guns N' Roses, Nirvana, all that. They were good, but I needed something that is closer to me. And by discovering rap music, it was scary to me, because I'm not used to see black people killing each other. Menace to society, it was scary to me. I'm not used to see that. Boys in the Hood, Bone Thugs and Harmony talking about scary shit stuff. But on the other side, the other side, they were talking real stuff. Ghetto Boys talking about how people die and how they miss people. All the Tupac, all of them, they talking about real stuff. And I discover a new page or a new thing about black people. Like, they are crazy, but they are funny, they are creative, they are everything. But they show the hard side also. So I had to learn from that point. And since then, I tried to be influenced by them, feeling alone, having no friends. But I knew a lot of people, but I couldn't use my creativity. If I use my creativity, I'm according to myself, I am myself. As long as I'm not creative, I lost myself. So I cannot grow.
That's key. That's key for everybody. You know, that's key.
Can I say something, please?
No, let me finish. Because your fulfillment is yourself, you know, having your own voice.
Yeah.
So creativity is the essence of all of it. Being whatever it is you should be. Go ahead.
Yeah, my brother just now talk about when he came to Holland, the family structure broke down. But here in Holland, when I came to Holland don't have no kind of family structure. When I came to Holland, I was so stunned, because we didn't have that in the Caribbean. For you to tell your mother, fuck you, you tell your father, fuck you. I was so stunned. I didn't know. I said, what kind of thing is this? I didn't like it. Up to now, I don't like it. Children, and black children, it's curious to people from Curaçao in Suriname. Some of them does the same thing to the parents, because I said, see, yeah. Yeah. First time I see children, now my mother would bust my mouth then.
No, we got to wrap this up. Okay. Now, the point she's describing is, I know you got it,
They
because
don't
it's
have
your
no family
experience.
structure.
Yeah, what she's saying is, people from South America, Caribbean, Africa, they bring in a culture. And part of that culture is respect your elders. And the last thing you're going to be doing is F anything, raise your voice, anything. That was my generation. But that shifted. And this disrespect is a part of what shifted. So you've listened to this, and what you see is different stages of consciousness. That's what people are describing. Different experiences, though similar, you know, and different reactions to some similar experiences, you know. So some reaction is we're free, and we should take advantage of it, and what we should do is pull ourselves up and take advantage. But you see it in this room, there's a lot of people taking advantage, meaning gone to college, got degrees, highly skilled, and treated like shit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's part of what's being said here. And then there's a reaction to it. And then there's people who have experienced different types of racism at different levels. And then what they're doing at one point, not getting answers. And more people in this room, they would give you other responses to how if it was Black Pete that hit her, or if it was, you know, the sister's experience with the biker who's calling her, you know, an animal or whatever, you know what I mean? There would be different reactions, but it's coming from the same experience, you know what I mean? And then what's the experience when you hit it when you're a child? What's an experience when you hit it when you're 20? What's the experience when you hit it when you're 30? And so in the experience of Black Pete, there's the experience of reacting, but then years later, there's the information. Oh, the answer comes. And what happens to people who don't get the answer? But the point is, people at different levels. And so some people, they're disturbed at what happened, and then they got some answers. They're going out doing something. And some people are looking for answers. You get it? So the point is, most of us black in here, just about everybody's black in here. But the fact is, we're hit with some similar experiences, we're responding in different ways. And this is telling you there's different levels of consciousness. And so that's what I want to get into. But you've been getting into it, because what you've been describing is different stuff. So when we get into this, we're going to see where you fit in this stuff. You know what I mean? So this is Free the Black Mind, as George Clinton said, so you're behind the clock. Actually, your ass will follow. I don't use that in public speeches because I like my stuff to be pretty. So, but behind, and you know what he means. So, what we're going to go into now is the reconstruction of the black mind. In other words, what are the stages people go through when they're waking up? And I really want to stress this. The movements that didn't get this, they self-destructed. It wasn't just that the FBI took them out. They had internal weaknesses. And those internal weaknesses ate them up. They had people coming into their groups who were sincere. Black Panther Party, they had people off the streets. They're soldiers. But they had a little gangster in them. But they wanted to fight. Because the average black gangster, particularly at that time, was rebelling against something. But he wasn't quite, or she wasn't quite clear about what they were rebelling against. So if you're getting them into something that's saying they're revolutionary, then you better have a way to take that spirit and refine it. You know what I mean? Like gold coming out of the ground. It's all dirty. You got to polish it. Because if you don't, then that stuff can eat you up. And what happens if the leadership is half pulling between, in the States we call it Stagger Lee, who was this bad black man who killed Billy. Now, his baddest claim to fame is he got mad and Billy begged him, don't kill him, and he killed him. And so you got some people in leadership who are half Stagger Lee and half Malcolm X. How are you going to be in leadership and there's a part of you that's crazy and there's a part of you that's conscious? You know what I mean? So the point is, these stages of consciousness are really key in terms of any group. Any group wants to know what these stages are so they can help people go through them. That means the leadership better have gone through some of them. And that's why Malcolm's such a good model. Malcolm went through it. That's why Cabral's such a great leader. because Cabral, we'll see where he was in the beginning, but he went through it. And then he was in a position to take other people through it. And so for people here, it's a question of you looking at, as I explain these cycles, looking at yourself, and we go back into discussion, where do you fit? Be honest. Because if you know where you fit, then you know where you're going. And that's the whole point of this. And because this is only a one-day thing, I tell you, we do 8 months, 9 months with people. We call this immersion, 2 or 3 times a week. We get into their heads. That's why people ask, how could you survive the FBI? Well, if we got an FBI agent in our organization, we would know pretty soon if we had changed certain patterns of thought. There's ways you figure that out. And it's very hard. The CIA has not figured out to fake an awakening. It's very hard. Do you hear me? Because I can look in your eyes and see it. I was looking in the eyes of a few people yesterday and they were glistening. And that's telling me there's an awakening. That's called, in the blues, it's a love life. But in the awakening, it's the opening of the eye. It's consciousness, and you can see that. That love is coming out. You cannot fake that. And in fact, look at a person's eyes. It's a window to their soul. You know what I mean? So these are stages. And so I'm going to start. There are actually 2 stages, and some people have discussed one, and some have discussed another, and the beginning of consciousness. So a lot of black psychologists in the States, when they try and describe these stages of consciousness, they will always start with what a number of people here have described, of how people have seen us and then how we see ourselves. And that's one stage of consciousness, and that's an unconscious state, okay? And, but I'm not going to start there because there's another stage. There are 2 stages. Some of our people, when they're undergoing an awakening process, start at one level. Some start at the other. This is the first thing to get straight. Now, some, and you see many who are downstairs playing dominoes, you know what I mean? Who are from Suriname. They won't come up here because it's African. But some of them are at a certain stage. And in the States, we call this black identity. Now some people call it Afro-American identity. It's island identity in the Caribbean. It's Jamaican, Barbadian, Cuban, Haitian, whatever, Suriname. What was being described by the last speaker was the experience of coming out of Suriname culture. Young age, but enough of an age, and then going back and bringing that here, and then getting bombarded. And then there are some who come here older. And so one level of consciousness is this stage that black, Jamaican, Barbadian, Cuban, Haitian, Suriname identity. This is the culture that our people recreated in those islands. They recreated in the United States. And these cultures are African-based with other influences. Dutch, French, English, the United States, you know what I mean? Portuguese, whatever it is. But the essence of these cultures is African at its core. And I think the brother who was from Ra Nefer was describing that, what's the term you used? That,
For wheat tea.
Yeah, wheat tea. That's your culture,
Yeah.
So there's a body of black people, and in the United States, this culture, which I call New African. And there's a brother who's written a very fine book, new research. It's called Exchanging Country Marks. And he's Afro-Puerto Rican, but he's African-American. Michael Gomez, his people come from Puerto Rico, he's African, but he's born in the United States. And this is research on how we reformed our culture from Africa in the United States. And my book, The Integration Trap Generation Gap, is extending that and then showing what the principles of this culture is. Because of all the cultures in the Western Hemisphere, the one that people think is least African is the one in the United States, because we did not have a majority on our landmass as you did in the Caribbean and South America. And so therefore certain things that you do prevail as purely African, even though most of the people in these islands don't know it. So that's a contradiction, you know. People from Suriname, Jamaica, whatever, the average one who's not conscious will be into the culture and say, we talked about this yesterday, I ain't no African. Don't be calling me no African. I didn't lose nothing mine in Africa. In fact, they don't want to deal with another island, but definitely not Africa. And the same thing, the most African black people come from Mississippi and South Carolina. They the nicest people, the most African. And they'll tell you in a minute, I'm no African. I didn't lose anything in Africa. And Malcolm said, you lost your mind in Africa. You know what I mean? And I say you lost your memory in Africa. We're historical amnesiacs, but we're living the culture. So the point is, it's the contradiction of you're denying your roots, but at the same time, you got roots. And that's a stage. There are black people like that. And so we got to understand that. And some of our people have made the mistake of thinking, oh, slavery wiped our culture out, especially in the United States. A whole lot of our intellectuals have argued that. They're dead wrong. I wouldn't be here but for everyday black people who came out of this culture who didn't know squat about Africa, but they knew enough about it that they could wake somebody up like me. They didn't call themselves African, but they were coming out of this culture. So each culture here has that. And so a body of people, in the United States it was field blacks who created this culture. And we're not just talking about the music, we're talking about the culture. In Suriname, clearly so. You know what I mean? Across the Caribbean, Jamaica, Haiti, how'd they break the backs of slavery? It was this Afro-Haitian culture with some Indian elements, you know, in it, but mainly Africa. Basically, Yoruba and Asante, those two merged. And why were they so fearless? How they kick Napoleon's behind? They kicked his behind because they had no fear of death. They believed there was a life after death. And they believed they were going to heaven either way. Heaven was in Ifa, you know, was in, you know, I'm into Ifa, you know, it was in the, you know, the capital of the Yoruba people, or it was on this earth when you were free. Either way, you were free. And they never faced anything like that. Suriname, as I was referring to yesterday, one of the Dutch leaders who came in, you know, one of these mercenaries to kill Africans, he found out the Africans were killing more whites than the whites were killing Africans, because every time, even when they break them on the rack and tear every part of their bones and body pieces, they would say, I don't fear this. You know what I mean? And in America, 100 lashes was the minimum. Across the Caribbean, 200. And very often taking the lashes without mumbling a word. Tough people. They came out of this culture. And so a lot of our people had that. But, so I stress that one stage of identity, which is the, you know, identity of Barbados, Jamaica, Haiti, the United States, the people who have it may not know where it comes from, but they be living it. That's the most important thing. But I also want to stress, because of the contradiction of your denial of Africa, that's the weakness. Because, and that's caused by slavery. We understand why. And so as great as this culture is, it'll be greater if people can acknowledge their source. That's hard. But that means that some of us have to change our language. Instead of just talking to them about Kemet, if you want to get somebody who is into the culture of the people in the islands or in South America, the U.S., you got to get them to see that this African stuff you're talking about is some of the same stuff they're talking about. Because, you know, with Ma'at, the stuff we learn about Ma'at, isn't that what all our parents taught us? They taught us to be truthful. They just would say, Matt, baby. I never heard of no Matt. What are you talking about, Matt? You know what I mean? Huh? But then when you say, it's truth and justice, they'll say yes, because that's what they told you. I will back you, baby, as long as you're right. Isn't that what our parents said?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So the point is, part of the value here in the cycles is also understanding that maybe some of us who are conscious, we need to appreciate the culture we're coming of. So the brothers from Ron Efra were making the point about the culture of Suriname and seeing that, well, that's what we already have, right? That's a key marriage, because when you do that, then you have the capacity to reach a broader group of our people. So I'm calling this new African culture. I'm saying that what we reformulated in the Caribbean, in South America, in the United States is Africa, but it's new. Because we were forced into that. We had to make changes. We couldn't just speak a pure African language, but in the Caribbean and South America, that's more African than anything. Hip hop has got a lot of it in it. Still that. We call it Ebonic. It's a language, but not as pure African as yours is. You know what I mean? And the food you're eating here, you know? Y'all eat African food, plantains. We don't eat that anymore. But we do eat rice. Rice was brought into here in the U.S. From the Senegambian region of Africa. You know what I mean? A good part of the diet in the United States is African. We don't know, but it's not as pure as yours. So the point is, what is being argued is one of the stages of identity is black, Jamaican, Barbadian. It's New African. And so New African is forging guiding principles of African culture mixed in with influences that came through slavery. But the point is, what is at the core of it is the guiding principles of African culture. And you all know the guiding central principle on all African cultures, starting with Africa, is spirit. Spirit. That's the guiding principle. And so we make a mistake when we put Africans down who are Christians or who are Hebrew Israelites or who are Muslims or whatever. What we need to understand is people embrace what's around them. They're into that because that's what they were around. But see, in the United States, this brother here, he makes a very good analysis on this. I do as well, extended, that we make a mistake in the United States of thinking, and the Nation of Islam and many other black nationalists, they thought, oh, the black masses are brainwashed because they're Christian. They're worshiping a white God. What we don't know is in the States, and this is probably true in many of the islands in South America where you come from, blacks were not Christians during slavery. They were practicing obeah. Is that right?
Yes.
They were putting the mojo on you.
Yes.
That's what the blues is about. I got the mojo working, baby, and I'm going to make it work on you.
We call it in Outback, we call it Obia.
Obeah, yes. Obeah, right. And that was divining on all the plantations. You had diviners. You couldn't divine unless you were priests. You know, that means that whether Europe or Sante, whatever, Bambara, whatever system. And so that persisted during slavery. And what happens at the end of slavery in the U.S. and in the Caribbean, South America, what happens is black people made a decision. And so the decision was to take this 250, whatever the amount of years you were enslaved in each of these islands. We got a few years different because we got dropped in different places, different time, and white people from different countries decided they were going to go to emancipation because if they didn't, we were going to free ourselves anyway. And so they decided to emancipate, to go to colonialism. But the masses made a decision. They would Africanize that little blanket they had. They called it Christianity. They would stick their obi up in there. That's what they did. And so Jesus, because I speak from my experience and each of you can speak from your experience, Jesus in the United States from most black people is a very different Jesus from white people. You hear me? Very different. First of all, in the United States, Jesus is Old Testament. You know the Bible, he's New Testament. And why would they pick Old Testament? Because they fought in the Old Testament. He was King Jesus. He was leading an army. And in the very beginning, he had swords coming out of his mouth. That's Shango. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's Orisha of war.
Europe.
You hear me? And then he's us. Because what do we say? We say when he was nailed to the cross, they pierced him in the side. Now this is what the Bible says. Jesus said, "My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" But we said, he was pierced in the side and didn't mumble a sound. Why did we say that? Because in slavery, they'd whip us and we wouldn't mumble a sound. Men and women, we were telling them, you can't break us. You hear me? So the point is, we were putting our African Obia, our African Orisha, that was being put into the Christian thing. And so what you find is, for example, in the United States, the experience was hush harbor during slavery. How many people know what hush harbor was? In the United States and in Barbados, they would, in order to preserve the spirit of Africa, they weren't Christians. They would go into the bush. They would go into the forest. They would go into the furthest removed shack on the plantation, furthest removed from the master, put their head under a bucket, and then they would call down the spirit until the spirit possessed them. And so when they formed the Pentecostal church in the United States, it's formed in Los Angeles, the brother who formed it runs through Los Angeles with a bucket over his head. You hear me? And what's he doing? He's bringing down, it's Obia. He's bringing down Orisha. He's bringing down. And so if you go into a sanctified church, they do the same thing as they do in Yoruba, in Ifa. And as Dr. Yosef Ben Yochanan pointed out in his book on the African origin of major Western religions, he points out when possession occurs, we never cross our legs because, in the Holiness Church, because you don't do it among the Yoruba, among the Asante, among any of these systems. So the point is, we often misread this. We're saying, oh yeah, they're Christians. No, they're not. It's a different type of Christian. Like they'll say, I got religion. You don't get religion, you get the Spirit. That's what they mean. You know what I mean? They get the Spirit. Everything in the black church is about bringing down the Spirit. You understand? At least in our experience. So the point is, about this black identity, Jamaican, Barbadian, whatever, it be fundamentally African. It has contradictions. And the contradictions are the ones we got to work with. But the point is, it can carry you through. I'm here in Rotterdam. Every day, my house is checked by my neighbor. His name is Joe. Joe's got a high school education. All his daughters went to UC Berkeley. His wife works for the police. She's not a police. She works in community relations. Joe comes out of this black identity. And until they forced him into retirement and he had to go half pay, which he just took, and he had paid his house off. He had all kinds of money in reserve and all this stuff. Joe started reading Doc Ben. He started reading John Henry Clark. He started wearing an ankh, but he's a Christian. You know what I mean? But Joe's black. And Joe is as conscious as I am. My organization was going to build a big building. And Joe got me a free architect, got me a free engineer, and he built his own house. And then when I moved into my house, the roof was leaking. Joe got up and patched the roof up. 6 hours. I said, what do I owe you? He said, this is what neighbors do for each other. You understand? Black identity. This is somebody who places his people first. You know what I mean? And so now he's into Afrocentric consciousness. But the point is, he needed, but he didn't need it that much. He likes his blackness. He don't play around. He looks after his daughters. Got each one of them a house with his own money. Helped them out, even though they're UC Berkeley graduates. So black identity or Bajan or Suriname or whatever, is this. It's the culture that we created. And basically it's spirit-based. It's humane. People coming from our culture are basically kind. We're not as kind as we used to be. And that's a problem your generation is facing. Stuff has hit us. So that's one stage of identity. And so you carry that in to Dutch land. You carry that in. It's already in the U.S. because it's been so long since we came from somewhere else. But the point is, wherever you are, people coming out of this are bringing that. And they're bringing contradictions. I want to stress that. And so if you're coming from this black, Jamaican, Barbadian, Cuban, Haitian, Suriname, whatever the identity is, and it's basically African, you got issues. Because we're not free from the brainwashing. There's brainwashing. But it's less because the culture protects you. You know what I mean? So what you see here, I'm talking about the African American experience, but it's true of all of ours. We're basically humanistic. We like rhythm. All of us are into rhythm. It's got to move us. We're dramatic people. Would you agree with that? We're high drama people. We're not people, our lives are not quiet. There's noise. You know what I mean? There's drama in relationships. And the drama can be good. And part of that is our culture, and it's in all parts. We all come out of these extended family traditions, all of us. How many people have experienced extended family in their lives, extended family, where, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, or your friends become a part of your family. How many? You carry that. You usually carry that. And you've got people in the islands, you've got people here, you've got people in South America. That's your network. And that's really the basis of our power, is the extended family. And these extended families have been weakened. And I think that's part of what you're describing in terms of breakup of families. They've been weakened. And in the States, drugs have been the main thing that have weakened the extended family, And now the loss of good jobs. And I'd imagine the weakening of family with the state here, the government, not giving the benefits they used to give. People are on their own, you know what I mean? And so when black people are on their own, they really get very little support, So that's a weakening. And I understand here, marriage isn't that great among young people. Is that true? Yes. You have more relationships. In the United States now, only 34% of our people are married. And there are a lot of people who even suspect marriage. Marriage is not a thing that they trust because the money has left, the jobs have left, and the men don't have the kind of money to support a family on their own. And so when the men don't have the money to support the family, they're not in the household. So these things have been weakened, but this is still basically our culture. And so in the U.S., I'm talking about what's happening there. But Wiki and Suriname, in different cultures, it's the same thing. You come up with this same thing. So the point is, that's one stage of consciousness. People are coming out of that. And older people especially have this grounding. You know what I mean? Older people who've spent time in their island, in their culture. So that's one. So that's one stage of consciousness. And I heard it from a few people. Some of you were describing that. There's another stage of consciousness, and this was being described a minute ago, and that's assimilation. In the United States, assimilation starts with house Negroes. As Malcolm X said, they were close to the master, they identified with the master. As Malcolm said, when the master got sick, they would say, "What's wrong, boss? We sick?" You know what I mean? Malcolm said, if the master's house was burning, they would say, "Our house is burning," and they risked their lives to put the fire out. But he said the field blacks probably set the fire. But the field blacks were happy that the house was burning down. They weren't going to try and save the house. And, the house slave you could go to him and you could say, let's escape. And some of them would say, I have found no place better than here. However, the historical record shows most house slaves would run away. So Malcolm didn't get that one quite right. Most house slaves, when they had a chance to get to foot, they would get to foot. And they would get to foot with field blacks. And there's an exception to this. Not all house slaves loved the master. Not all house slaves identified with the master. In fact, if Malcolm didn't know it, he was descended from house slaves. His great-great-great-grandfather was a jar. He was Bombard. He was 6'4", muscle-bound, a warrior, and he was a master builder. That's why all of Malcolm's family members on the male side were builders. So not all house slaves were meek and mild. And in fact, he disappeared in the family tree because they either killed him or sold him. More likely, they sold him. You know? So the point is that assimilation starts very often with the people closest to whites when you're going back to slavery. But basically, the stage of assimilation, pure assimilation, are blacks who want to be white. Or if you want to deal with Arabs, because I said this applies to all people of color, Latinos, all of those have faced the similar thing. So the purest form of assimilation are blacks who want to be white. Black Skin, White Mask is the book that describes that, because Frantz Fanon wanted to be white. Black is the ace of spades and thought he was white. Amilcar Cabral said that he went to Portugal thinking he was white. You understand? Wow. Malcolm X said he wanted to be white. This is honest. These are some of the most conscious people we have, but they were honest. You understand? Some assimilation is subliminal. People are taking on identity, they're not conscious of it. So they're not consciously saying, I want to be white. Colin Powell, he comes from a different situation. His people come from Jamaica, and you know, he's a 4-star general. But if you read him, I'm quoting his own words. He said, I wasn't that black. Not that black. Well, he's saying a couple of things, because they have what they call browning in Jamaica, which means browning, you're lighter. And so he's saying, I'm not really as dark as they are. But he's saying more than that. He says, I'm always on time, I'm always reliable, meaning black people aren't. But you see, if you told him he was somebody that wanted to be white, he would deny it, because he also shows black pride. He's proud of the Buffalo Soldiers. I don't think he knows what I know about the Buffalo Soldiers. I shared yesterday. They were defending Indians. I think his version is they were out there fighting for the army, because that's what he did. You understand? But the Buffalo Soldier really understood. He's ex-slave. He owed Abe some loyalty, because Abe had to sign that emancipation so that he could win his war, because blacks won the war. You understand? But the point is, when they got out there, they defended Native Americans. Mostly, that's what they were doing. You know what I mean? So, but Colin don't understand that. So I call him subliminal assimilation. You know what I mean? Because he has elements of black pride in him. So that's a contradiction. By the way, these stages are mixed. It's not just pure assimilation. It's not just pure black identity. You see people with black identity or Suriname identity or Jamaican identity who've got confusing attitudes. Yeah. They're into the culture, yeah, but they also got contradictions. Yeah. And it depends on how deep those contradictions, how much the cultures carried them over. And the biggest one is, do they like being black? That's the biggest one. Now those who come out of Suriname or black in the States or Jamaica or Barbados like being black. The culture carries them through the best. But those who got contradictions on that, they got some deep problems. Yeah. They be off into being kind and nice, but they don't like themselves. Yeah. Oh, that's a problem. And sometimes it's subliminal. They like themselves, but every now and then you'll hear them make a comment about, well, I'm not that good looking. They only make that comment once, or I got a pug nose. Meaning your African nose, a pug nose is one that's been hit in the ring. You know what I mean? Meaning your African nose isn't pretty. You know what I mean? So that is a form of assimilation. So even in the black identity, you can have some mixed stuff in there because that's a slave thing that's in there. It's a question of how much. But in the stage of assimilation, this is worse. You understand? This is worse. W.B. Du Bois described assimilation this way. He says it's seeing yourself through the eyes of others. Measuring yourself by someone else's yardstick. So this stage of assimilation is one where you can be the most beautiful black man or black woman that anyone has ever laid their eyes on, but when they look in the mirror, they see ugly because they have let someone else define their standard of beauty. And they have taken on someone else's standard, and since it's light and white and straight hair and certain kinds of features, then it means the beauty in themselves is negated because they can't see it. They've internalized someone else's standard. And very often, some people are conscious of this, some are not. But they've internalized it. You know what I mean? So this is a stage of assimilation. This is a level of assimilation. Some assimilation can be people have assimilated into the Western idea of things. So it can be political assimilation. It can be that you've accepted the white man's view of how his system works. You buy it. That was my assimilation. I bought into their definition of the system. I was a government major. So I figured I knew how the government worked. That was mine. I bought into that. And my awakening experience when we get into this came from seeing that I had been lied to. Now that's not too good. You've been educated and then you realize you haven't been educated. Uh-oh, you're in trouble. So there are different levels of assimilation. You understand? But the basic one is, it's white, baby. It's their standard. It's looking down on yourself. You don't like yourself. That's the big thing with this stage of identity. And this is a product of slavery. This is a product of colonialism. You're into denial if you think that's not happening. And so the color issue that was being raised, that's a part of assimilation. But some people who are in black consciousness can have that. But assimilation, very often, that's it. In the Caribbean, in a lot of areas in South America, you can predict behavior based on skin color. People have internalized it to that level. You know what I mean? And then some blacks, very dark complexion blacks, have internalized the same thing. They figure that they can get over in the world if they get somebody lighter or if they can get white. They have really got it. Fanon and black skin white mass is describing the black person who's married a white person and they figured they become white in the process. And in the middle of sex, they're saying, oh my God, blessed am I. I've been saved. I'm white. Or they carry someone around on the street, you know, arm in arm. And I'm not knocking relationships. If there's love, you can't say anything about that. I'm not getting into that. I'm getting into the reason. And if the reason is that you feel low because of your color and you feel elevated because someone else lacks it, you know, they're white, then it's a different story. So this is a stage of unconsciousness, assimilation. And it's a stage that has to be dealt with. And in these cycles of African consciousness, it's a key one. Now, a key thing about assimilation is this. It's caused by negative images. Black Pete. Black Pete usually can cause anger about it. But the negative images is also what leads people not to want to identify with their own roots. And so assimilation has been caused by creating a negative image of Africa. And that negative image is false. And the reason why most blacks from the Caribbean, South America, the United States don't want to identify with Africa, it was 100, 200, 300 years of brainwashing that said a savage in Africa, slave in America. And back in their head, for years, hundreds of years, we didn't buy that because we named everything Africa. enslaved Africans did. But there's a point where some of us started taking off. And that's what's in the back of our head. So if you've got a false image of your past, you've got a false image of yourself. And that's the big bottom line about assimilation. Because you can't separate the root from the fruit. We're the fruit. If you don't like the root, you don't like the fruit. You know what I'm talking about? And so that's the problem. And so that's the thing, even with black identity or Jamaican, whatever identity, people got problems with the root, then they got some problems. Because then it means they got some negative attitudes about themselves. But their culture's carrying them through because there's so many good things. But I'm setting this up to say, I don't care whether you're assimilated or you're in this new African culture, both need to return to a deeper rooting in their culture, both do. But the one who's coming from their own cultural roots, be it in the Caribbean, South America, the U.S., they're in a stronger position. They're in a stronger position. This same thing. Now, this is something that is hard to show on the screen. The next one I'm going to get to, so I'm going to explain it to you. Let's see. Yeah, this is it. Let's see. Okay. There's a stage called pre-disturbance. This one is too small for you to see, so I'm going to read this to you. This is a stage where black people experience racism. Very often young black people. Your experience where you were describing your experience with black Pete, but you're at a point where you don't know what to do with it. There are different kinds of reactions on this, but it's an experience with racism. Your experience with black Pete. Malcolm X's experience was being told that he should be a carpenter when he wanted to be a lawyer. My experience with little black Samba in the classroom. The experience could be the experience with the police on the street corner. It could be any form of racism, direct or indirect, in the 60s or now. The Black Lives Matter, the whole movement that's come around killing blacks by the police. Some of this causes pre-disturbance experience. So what happens at this stage is when you experience racism at this stage, and a lot of our people experience this, you start to realize that there's something wrong. And if you've been acting white, it's not doing any good for you. In Malcolm's case, he wanted to be white. And then he's told by his teacher he can't because he's got to be a janitor, a carpenter, when in fact he wanted to be a lawyer. So he's telling himself all this work to be accepted. The N-words used on me, I grin. And now it's not working. You know what I mean? Your experience. You're doing everything they want you to do, but they're treating you not the way you should be treated, with dignity and respect. And so at this stage, this person enters a stage of racism, experience with racism, and it leads to, in one case, I don't know. I'm trying to answer, what's wrong with this black Pete? I don't like it, but you don't get the explanation. Well, why am I being treated this way? Why am I being treated so bad? It often leads to what we call in pre-disturbance confused rebellion, which means those who rebel at this stage, they're angry and they strike out. Urban rebellions are often a response to this. Where you see cities burning in the States, that's pre-disturbance. That's confused rebellion. People are being hit by racism, they're angry, but they don't really fully understand the system that's hitting them. They understand it's bad, but they don't really understand what it's based on, and they strike out. Confused rebellion can be the stage where a person decides to rebel. In Malcolm's case, he wanted to be a lawyer. His rebellion at the stage of confusion was to become sullen. He was no longer interested in school. He was no longer, of course, he rejected the N-word. He didn't like it anymore because it wasn't getting results. Before, if he went along, he could get along. If he acted white, he could treat it all right. The N-word was okay because the password was going to be he'd get on the plantation and get him a good job. He'd become a lawyer. You know what I mean? Now he saw that wasn't going to happen. Now, I should point out, some people don't react this way. Their reaction is, like my mother, they told you, straight A student, home economics, she said, like hell. Some of us are defined by others. Some of us, we define ourselves. No two people react to the same situation the same way. You know what I mean? So it really depends on whether you're self-directed or other-directed. Malcolm was other-directed. And that's not because he was weak. He was a leader. He had to respond to people. You know what I mean? He had to listen. And in this case, his family structure had been broken. And so he didn't have the strong father to come home to give him a message, to give him an answer. So the point is that this pre-disturbance is a confused rebellion. And so in Malcolm's case, his striking out is to become a criminal, but he's rebelling against the system. He thinks he's striking out against the system. He's actually conforming to the system. You understand? Or just confused and you're going along and you're angry and you don't know what's going on. So this is a stage that affects you. So you could be a hustler or a thief, or you could just go out and start talking bad about white people, or you could burn down a city. This could be a whole lot of black people who are angry. But the point is, you have not really defined the cause of the racism that you're facing. That's the problem with this stage. This stage, disturbance. Frantz Fanon in Wretched of the Earth described this, and this is part of how we constructed this and looking at this. A person experiences, and a direct or indirect experience of racism, the key thing about the disturbance experience is this. Malcolm X describes in the autobiography of Malcolm X, he describes the experience where he's in prison. He calls himself Satan. His brother Reginald comes into prison and delivers a message from the Nation of Islam. And the message is the white man's the devil. Malcolm thought he was the devil. So that message was delivered at his level of consciousness. And then he tells him, the white man has taken your history from you. Well, Malcolm wasn't concerned that much about history, but his family was. He came out of a Garvey family. So this begins to open his eyes. And it leads him to do something. My experience was, I'm leading a movement. In 1963, I got 10,000 people I'm leading. And it's going up against the corporations. And I'm having lunch at a place called Virginia's Restaurant. And I'm having some good food. And the brother drove me to the airport, Norman Brown, like this brother that gave you the information. Is the one that gave me the information. But he didn't know it for 20 years. And so I'm a government major. I know how the government works. I'm fighting the system. I know how the system works. And he proceeds to tell me how the government worked. I was assimilated politically. My father wasn't. I had been in the Marine Reserves. My father wouldn't join the Army. When they were to draft him, he went to the draft board and told them, draft me, and I ain't killing no Germans because I ain't got no Southern accent. They ain't lynched my people. Draft me, I ain't killing no Japanese. They look just like me. Draft me and give me an M1 rifle, and I'm shooting every redneck cracker I can shoot. And my father was a little guy, very light complexion, and when he got angry, I never saw him angry, but they called him red. His complexion would change. And he was a street cat. My mother prohibited him from ever swearing. We never heard him swear, but I know that's what happened. Malcolm did the same thing, but he had to drug himself up and fake it. My father just had to be himself. But me, I didn't get the message. Because my father's message, I got the message when he come home and whip a white boy for using the N-word. But I didn't get the message about the political system. But Norman Brown began to explain to me what to you is no explanation. You know this, but my generation didn't. That it was the white power elite that ran the country. It was not a democracy. This was a revelation for me. And so with Malcolm, so what I'm thinking, when I get this message, I'm saying, to him, I'm saying, oh yeah, because my favorite word was, I know. I said, I know is my favorite word. And to myself, I'm saying, oh shit. Oh shit. Because I realized that 4 years of college, my second year of law school, wasted. I had bought into the white boy's view, and if I bought into that, what else had I bought into? And then I knew that if I didn't know the system that I'm fighting, I'm in trouble. But I know then, I don't know myself. Because if I don't know my enemy, I don't know myself. You understand? Now here's the key thing about disturbance. Malcolm said it, I'll say it. Anyone that's gone through it will say the same thing. What this causes you to do for the first time in your life is to think for yourself. And when you make the comment that after 30 years, that's one of the things you think. You're thinking, for 30 years, they've had me up to some point. That's what you think. And I thought the same thing. You know what I mean? I thought, because I was 23. I'm saying 23 years of And so the point is, it's the first light of thinking for yourself. It's the first experience of mental freedom. You are not free. You are not fully thinking for yourself. It's just the beginning. And you're confused still. Because there's a lot of stuff you will do at disturbance, striking out against the system. You know, if you're a poet, you're going to be writing confused stuff. You're pro-black, but at the same time pro-white. Some people in this disturbance stage are still sleeping white. They still got white values, but they are beginning to transform themselves. You understand? And so this is the defining experience. And it is this experience that is the trigger to someone making a decision, those that have this experience, of wanting to be African. This is real key. Now, some can't point to a defining experience. Some people, they just embrace it. They can't say there's one moment. But those that have, this is the key experience. Because it's out of this experience, once you taste thinking for yourself, when you thought you were thinking for yourself and someone else was thinking for you, your mind was on remote control. This is your first step to freedom. So you want to dig in. For me, I knew I couldn't win too many battles if I didn't know either myself or my enemy. I was finished. But that wasn't the main motive. The main motive was ignorance. I saw some light, and I wanted to get more. You understand? I see they've got food here, so we're going to break. Is the food ready? We're going to break. And then...
That's a real black person idea.
Yeah. Once we break, we're going to come back to this African identity. We'll give you some food.